Welcome to Essentials Explained. In this video, we are going to walk through an example case study for maximizing the sales of Girl Scout cookies. We will walk through several common case study questions, including market sizing, inventory procurement, and go-to-market strategy optimization to understand what is the best way to sell Girl Scout cookies. If you like this content, please like and subscribe and check out the other videos on our channel. You have been engaged by an entrepreneurial troop of Girl Scouts seeking to optimize their annual cookie sales. This troop is based in a U.S. town of roughly 100,000 people, representative of the United States. The troop is comprised of 50 girls and considers the entire metropolitan statistical area their sales region, with no other troops selling there. They are seeking to optimize their cookie sales and need you to help solve key questions, including market sizing, inventory procurement, and their sales or go-to-market strategy. We are going to start with the market size. To purchase the correct number of boxes, our troop wants to understand the total market size for their sales area. The first question you might want to ask is, do we have any detail on their historical sales or the number of boxes that this troop sold last year? Unfortunately, there is no record of previous sales in this area, but we can share key statistics on the total US cookie sales. 200 million boxes of Girl Scout cookies were sold annually, and the average selling price of a box is $4. So in order to estimate the market size for our MSA, we can take the total number of boxes sold of 200 million and divide it by 330 million, the US population, to arrive at 0.6 boxes per person in the United States. Next, we can take the population of our MSA, 100,000, and multiply it by 0.6 boxes per person to get roughly 60,000 boxes we expect to sell this year. Then take 60,000 multiplied by $4 per box to get a market size of $240,000. So now that we understand our total market size, let's dive into procurement. We were able to find historical breakouts of previous cookie types to inform our purchasing decisions. Please use the data below to calculate how many of each cookie the troop should purchase. So we have received data that lays out the different cookie types, so Thin Mints, Samoas, all the way down to trayfuls, the percent that was purchased in previous years, and a description. This data is comprised of standard cookie types that are rolled out every year: Thin Mints, Samoas, Do-si-dos, Tagalongs, Lemonades, and trayfuls, and then 2 rotational cookies, which is a rotating cookie option, which we do not have data for. So in order to optimize inventory procurement, we need to understand what our 2 rotational cookies will be. Our 2 cookies will be Aloha cookies, which have white chocolate chips and macadamia nuts, and Golden Yangles, which are triangular cheddar crackers that were sold in the 1980s. Both of these are previous Girl Scout cookies that are being brought back for the season. Before diving into the individual cookie procurement, it's helpful to understand that the total percent purchased last year or in the historical period is 85%. So Thin Mints, calculated all the way to trefoils, will add up to 85%, implying that the 2 rotational cookies are typically around 15% of cookie sales. We will need to make an estimation about each one of these rotational cookies and simplify the percent purchase from historical periods. 2 really quick tips here. Number 1, simplify numbers where you can. When you have the opportunity to take Do-si-dos down from 16% to 15%, or take lemonades from 9% to 10%, it will make your math a lot easier. But make sure you check in with your interviewer and ask, is it okay if I simplify these 2 numbers just to make the math a little bit easier? Most interviewers will have absolutely no problem letting you do that. The biggest thing is, if you just make that assumption, they're not going to follow through your logic, and they're actually going to think maybe you did the math wrong, maybe you jumped ahead, maybe you wrote down the number wrong. But if you ask them and you verbalize the assumption you're going to make, chances are you might actually get extra credit for solving this problem in an 80-20 way and focusing on the big picture instead of getting bogged down in the minutia. Point number 2, we need to allocate this remaining 15% for our 2 rotational cookies. One way you could do this is you could add 7.5% for each, but my personal preference here is actually to add 10% for Aloha cookies and 5% for Golden Yangles, because it does a couple things. 1, it makes the math easier. It's a lot easier to calculate 10% and 5% than 7.5% each. And the other thing is it actually shows that you're thinking about the problem in a critical way and saying, wow, I think Aloha cookies will actually sell better because they fit more succinctly with the core product suite of Girl Scout cookies. They're a cookie, They seem similar to Thin Mints or any of the other products that my customer sells, where Golden Yangles don't really make sense. And people don't really want to buy cheddar cheese crackers from Girl Scout troops. You can make this assumption, but verbalize it to your interviewer and say, my interpretation is that customers will be more interested in Aloha cookies than Golden Yangles. So I will allocate out of the remaining 15%, 10% to Aloha cookies and 5% to Golden Yangles. And communicate that in a really succinct way, and your interviewer will be bought in. And they'll understand that you think critically about this question, and you have added a spin that's really probably closer to the overall answer. Once we have simplified our figures and decided on the appropriate allocation for our 2 rotational cookies, we now have the inventory projections for this year and the percent of our total market we should purchase for each type of cookie. As a reminder, in our first step, we calculated that we expect to sell 60,000 boxes in our MSA. And one helpful shortcut here will be realizing that 5% of 60,000 cookies is equal to 3,000 cookies. So for each one of our cookie types, we can simply mark down the multiple of 5% that they represent. So 25% is 5, 20% is 4, 15% is 3, 10% is 2, 5% is 1. And then multiply that figure by 3,000 cookies to get 15,000 cookies for Thin Mints, 12,000 for Samoas, making the math much simpler than trying to calculate each one independently. While we have a good sense of our inventory and our procurement process, how should we go about thinking about our sales? Our troop wants to better understand their optimal go-to-market strategy and understand their sales channels to maximize revenue. Key question is, how should they approach selling cookies? 2 simple ways to think about this are segmenting in direct sales and indirect sales. Direct sales will be cookies the girls sell directly, and indirect sales will be sales through a family member, a parent, a friend, or any sales where the troop doesn't directly interact with the customer. For our direct sales, we'll want to identify locations with high foot traffic, so grocery stores, malls, banks, and then prioritize those locations based off of foot traffic volume and the probability of cookie sales at that location. And then finally, we want to organize our troop to effectively cover all of those locations and distribute the sales opportunities equally among our troop to ensure that everyone has equal access to optimize their cookie sales. With our indirect channel, we will want to identify contacts that can leverage their network for cookie sales. So parents, family, friends, enable those contacts to effectively sell cookies in order to provide the right order forms, make sure they have the necessary information on the rotational cookie types, and then finally, ensure we're delivering the cookies to our customers who have purchased to ensure that we have high levels of customer service. Our city council has provided us with the following chart to help with this year's cookie sale. How should we incorporate this new data into our sales strategy? This chart shows the foot traffic volume for 4 popular locations, segmented by their popularity on weekdays versus weekends. One initial takeaway is that given our sales force is unable to work weekdays as they have school, we should prioritize locations with high foot traffic on weekends. So prioritize grocery stores, malls, and parks while avoiding banks who have very low traffic on weekends. Next, what we could do is for our 3 remaining options, grocery stores, malls, and parks, map them on a 2x2 of weekend foot traffic volume and the probability of cookie sales to understand where is there high weekend foot traffic volume and where is there a high probability of cookie sales, to map out which locations we should not use, which ones we should potentially use, and then what are the locations we should prioritize to optimize our cookie sales. Grocery stores have high weekend foot traffic volume and have a high probability of cookie sales, as customers are already purchasing food products and are likely primed to be ready to purchase Girl Scout cookies. Malls have a slightly lower weekend foot traffic volume and likely a slightly lower probability of cookie sales than individuals visiting the grocery store. And finally, while parks have an exceptionally high foot traffic volume, my perspective is the probability of cookie sales is relatively low, as many individuals might not have their wallets on them, and there are many points for entrance and exit that make it difficult to fully capture the foot traffic volume. So our takeaway is that we should prioritize grocery stores and malls to optimize our sales initiatives for Girl Scout cookies. I really like using 2x2s here. I think they are a great option for visualizing optimization problems where there is likely two dimensions you want to plot your options on. One, high volume of foot traffic, and then two, high probability of selling cookies. And it makes it really, really simple to plot these options and explain it to your interviewer in a way of these options fall in the high category of both buckets. These options did not fall in the high category. So we are going to pursue and prioritize the options that are high on both characteristics. Makes it really, really easy to explain, makes it really easy to follow, and is a really, really clear way of communicating your answer. This is not a typical case with a conclusion where the CEO tracks you down in the snack room and asks you for your recommendation for solving the overall problem of the case. Instead, this is a relatively segmented case with three different sections. There's market sizing, there's inventory procurement, and then ultimately sales force optimization. If instead at the end of the case your interviewer were to ask for a conclusion, what you could do is very easily summarize those three sections in very simple parts. In conclusion, throughout the case, we sized the market for this troop at $240,000. Our expectation is to procure inventory in line with historical levels, incorporating both the standard cookie options and the new rotating cookie options based on our best judgment. And then finally, we gauged the sales force effectiveness for this troop and decided to prioritize both grocery stores and malls as our best option for maximizing sales. If you really want to go above and beyond, you could bring in additional data. We were given data at the beginning of this that there are 50 members of this troop that we didn't use throughout the case and could bring in and say, our expectation is that the $240,000 will be allocated evenly across the troop, with each member selling roughly $5,000 of cookies, or roughly 1,200 boxes of cookies per individual troop. That is a great way to end the case and to really bring it back to what information you received at the beginning of the case and just provide some additional context, because we talked about in our sales force, let's make sure we allocate this evenly across every single girl and that they have even distribution of sales, or at least the opportunity to have even distribution of sales. So being able to tie that in and being able to say, this is the market size based on the 50 troops that we have in our group, this is what it would imply from a sales perspective. And this is what it would imply from a volume perspective. Helpful for showing that you've tracked the pieces of the case and you understand the context and can wrap it all up and bring it all together. If you have enjoyed this content, please check out the other videos on our channel and on this playlist. And we look forward to seeing you again at Essentials Explained.